Okay, hello guys. So I am doing another one of these commentary videos, and I'm basically just going to be showing you a couple videos here and just giving my commentary on it as a psychic and someone who has a lot of spiritual experiences and does astral travel and things like that. Okay, so I am going to show you parts of this video where, to me, a lot of the people in Congress, a lot of CEOs, a lot of news anchors, a lot of these people who are in these high up positions, they're actually often this star race. And you guys know that I cannot say that any one star race is totally evil or totally good. It actually really varies. So when it comes to this star race, I just find that most are like very um I guess you can call them fallen. Sorry, I guess you could call them fallen. However, there are these lizard like beings who I would consider to be very awake and not fallen at all. They're more of a dragon type being. So it really, yeah, it really does depend on the individual. But I find that these reps who are in Congress and in these high up positions, they're usually like they are not awake. They're very asleep. They don't really understand what they're doing. They just want to gain power and control over other souls, basically. So I'm going to show you. So when it comes to these, I guess you can call them shapeshifters, this star race, um, you'll see little things that they do. So they will kind of like flick their tongue out. Okay, I'm just telling you. And it's not in a way where it seems normal, like it seems like it's almost like a tick that they do. And I know that some people do it to kind of reset themselves to start talking again, but with them I find that it's very very it's almost too much. It doesn't seem totally normal. So you'll see that happening. And then you'll also see this double blinking happening, which I will show just in a second.
as well as the people in the industry, to make sure that the structure function rule uh, doesn't change the intent of the DSHEA law. It is extremely important, I think, that the will of the people expressed through legislation passed by the Congress be followed by every bureaucracy in our government. And if we find
So it just seems like a lot. Yeah. And I understand that if people are eating and drinking, they definitely do that. But so there's also, oops, you may also see them do this double blink thing. Um,
to be
so
given
I'll just show
the
that.
opportunity to provide testimony to the Committee on Government Reform. I think as a way to simplify this, let me say that botanicals is what I'm going to focus on, not all the things limited into shade, because I don't know all the other things. That's not my specialty. But let me say that my original motivation over 20 years ago was to say what could be safe and effective and affordable and available part of primary health care throughout the world. And there is only one answer, and that
So I don't typically see that. with most people. So that I do equate to um, them being this star race. So, and I find that most people in Congress are that. Okay, so I'm also going to do a commentary on this video, and this is an interview with a channeler. So, one of those new age channelers, and this is his name. I don't want to say the names, and I don't want to say the names of the star races because I don't want these people to find this video. And I don't want this video to be flagged for any reason. So I'm going to just write it here. Okay.
Information and energy. The more information and energy that consciousness has available to it, the more that consciousness can express itself. So the densities also show up.
Sorry, I should say that he is connected to this star race, specifically a more black colored one. So there's many different within each star race. So when I talk about Lyrans, Avians, Reps, all of that, there are many different types.
Us, the level of expression available at that stage of consciousness. So a first density life form would be one of the 4 elements: earth, water, fire, air. So if you ask yourself, like, what's the amount of expression that a rock has, or the wind has, or fire has? It's like, it definitely has an expression. You know, it's not nothing. It's definitely there. It has its own very unique components and qualities. But like, could you have a rock as a pet? Or could you have a relationship with a rock in any way? Could you have a philosophical conversation with fire? You know, no, because it's not on the density level yet. Those elements are not at the density level where those expressions of consciousness are available. Similarly, a second density life form, a dog or a cat, they definitely have more expression than does one of the 4 elements. Yeah. A cat or a dog or an animal or an insect, they're moving around. They interact with their environment. They've got awareness of self and all these things. But again, can you have a philosophical conversation with your dog? Can your cat invest in the stock market or know what that even means? No, because they don't have the photon at their density level is not vibrating fast enough to allow that expression yet.
So interesting how he's saying that animals and even elements, they don't have that intelligence. So because they can't talk about philosophy or invest in the stock market or, make calculations, they're not as advanced as us. I would actually say that animals do have a lot of awareness. They have healing powers. They are very, very connected. They're connected to each other, even. That's how they're able to migrate together. So I don't agree with what he's saying, but this is something that they want you to kind of reject nature. They want you to go against nature, basically. So
let's extrapolate what I just explained to third density, moving to fourth. This is kind of a mind-blowing thing, but if you think about the difference between a second density life form and a third density, so AKA you and your dog, think about the difference in consciousness, right? Pretty drastic, pretty big difference. Well, there is just as big and actually even bigger of a difference between a third density being and a fourth density being. And this is because the densities, from the way I understand them and all the different metaphysical studies I've looked at, all of them seem to corroborate this idea, including the Hawkins scale, that the densities are like logarithmic. So there's like an exponential jump in each density. So as big as the distance is between a second and third density being, even bigger is the distance in consciousness between a third and fourth density being. And you go, oh, how can that be possible? But then when you think about it, you're like, oh, well, if we think about what ETs can do, they can speak with their minds telepathically. They don't even need to talk. They can read your thoughts like they're reading the newspaper. They can levitate objects with their mind. They can translocate. They can create craft that travel across the universe and galaxies. They can do all kinds of stuff that is godlike to us. And then on top of that, just their spiritual awareness is on such a higher level. One example I give is, I
would say that we also have the capability to be naturally telepathic. I would say even animals have that ability. You sometimes hear about an animal or a pet knowing when their owner is sick and they'll like jump on them and kind of go to the area where their owner um, is injured or wherever the illness is in their body. So we have these abilities. There are some races of ETs who basically use technology to increase those abilities in them to have that telepathy. And I guess in that way, you can say that they are one upping us in that area. Um, but you'll find that they really do focus on just the power of the mind, and whoever's the most telepathic is the most powerful. That to me, that is not true. And even us, even us little humans in this, what he calls third density, we should have way more abilities than we have. So we should actually be way more telepathic and way more connected to God and just this like higher knowingness. That's how we should be. But there are a lot of ET races who just really want to make us think small about ourselves, to make us think that the only way to have telepathy or to be able to move objects with your mind is through technology. And this is why I believe they focus so much on autistic kids having this ability, because they're kind of showing that not everyone can have this, only autistic kids. So you may have to do things to upgrade your mind, like artificially.
Classic depiction of a like a gray alien or whatever. They've got the big, huge head, usually kind of
Sorry, I'm just
triangle-shaped
going
head a little
back.
bit. They can do all kinds of stuff that is godlike to us. And then on top of that, just their spiritual awareness is on such a higher level. One example I give is, you know, the classic depiction of a like a gray alien or whatever. They've got the big, huge head, usually kind of triangle-shaped head a little bit, huge, massive brain, and those big almond eyes that are like pure black, very small mouth, very small nose. And it's like everyone who describes ETs, like the vast majority of descriptions of ETs or artistic depictions, they always have this exact same archetype: skinny bodies, big heads, big black almond eyes, small mouth, small nose. You say, why do beings evolve like that? When you understand the densities model, it all makes perfect sense. As you grow in consciousness from third to fourth density, Ra says when the heart chakra comes online, it immediately makes available the upper chakras as well. So the throat and the third eye are immediately available to begin doing work in and activating them. But before the heart chakras open, you got no access to these chakras. So the heart is the gateway. It's the great stepping stone, they say.
So is he going to say that their heads are bigger because their um, throat and third eye are opening? That's okay. Let me see.
So love is the foundation of all positive polarity, right? Well, once you're really living from the heart, you are seeing everybody as a divine expression of God. You cannot judge people anymore. You genuinely love everybody like they're your own brother or sister. Well, you are operating on a much higher frequency of consciousness. And that love is that power that joins you to other beings, right? Metaphysically, it connects you to people when you love them. So as our intensity of love grows on this planet, we will start more and more to share thoughts with each other and pick up each other's thoughts, which already happens now, right? But it usually only happens between like husband and wife or really intimate people relationships, because there's a much deeper connection of love with that being.
Yeah, I do actually agree with that, where you have stronger telepathy with your soulmates. So you might meet someone and then you don't even have to be super close to them. I do find that couples and parents and their children will have telepathy, but it could also just be people who are part of your higher soul families that you will just automatically have telepathy with them. It's actually pretty cool how that happens.
So extrapolate that a few thousand years from now and imagine where the love is so intense amongst humanity that we're all just kind of able to swap thoughts whenever we want. And so now, like, we don't really need to use our mouths as much because we're just talking to each other in our minds. A couple thousand years later, we're not really using the mouth much. Humans are going to eat a lot less food as time goes on because we're more and more able to take in the subtle pathways of energy, the prana, the ether, and these kinds of things, grounding from the earth. ETs classically don't eat food, right? They just kind of take in sunlight and whatnot. So you're not eating.
Okay. So what's interesting, I just want to show you this as a reference. So this is what he's referencing. So he's saying, yeah, grays have the larger heads, they have the black eyes, they have like small or no mouths. So to me, like a lot of these star races, so grays, so these are ET races who actually are subterranean. So they're not living in other planets. They don't come from outer space. Okay. They are living on Earth. They're just humans who have de-evolved and chosen another path. But they have access to all this technology. So they have been living underground. When you aren't exposed to the sun, like your eyes are going to change. Your skin becomes very white. This is an example of like a de-evolution. And you also have other star races who, yeah, this is an example of a de-evolution.
And you're not talking, so the mouth is naturally going to get smaller over time. But what are you doing? You're much more intelligent. You're using psychic, telepathic abilities. Your brain needs to get a lot bigger. So the brain is getting bigger and larger. The mouth and the nose are getting smaller. Our hair, we're becoming less hairy because we're moving farther away from that animal spectrum, right? We're moving farther away from second density. So we don't need to be coated in hair and have big, huge muscles. Why do you need big muscles and to be big and strong when you can move people with your mind or freeze somebody with your mind? You know, it's like, yeah, I could probably beat an extraterrestrial at an arm wrestling contest, but they could freeze me with their mind.
So to me, they're using technology to have those abilities. And their look is more a result of them merging with machines or trying to live underground without the sun, things like that.
Am I any threat to them with my big muscles? No. So that's why they get skinnier. And then think about the eyes for a moment. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it the iris that's the black part, or is that the pupil? I think it's the pupil, right?
For the first time in modern history, college students.
I always get the two I always get the two mixed up, man. It's weird.
But I have seen other aliens that are not like the gray. So like, Avatar and the Pleiadians. And some of them are looking like tall, blonde, beautiful beings also. But they are maybe, I don't know, on another spectrum. I don't know.
Well, people say that the grays are humans from the future, right? This is the classic thing that at least that I've heard a lot of, is the grays are us from the future. So they look a lot like us, but also very different. So if that's true, it makes sense why they would have gigantic, pure black eyes, which looks kind of creepy to us. But if you think about what the purpose of the pupil is, the black part in the center of the eye, that's the camera shutter, right? So when you shine light in your eye, it shrinks because it doesn't want to let in too much light. And when you're in the dark, it widens to take in more light. So the more black your eye is, the more light it's taking in. So imagine the spectrum of light that these extraterrestrials are taking in that have these big, huge black almond eyes. I mean, they're able to see parts of the light spectrum that we're totally oblivious to. They can probably see our...
But like, why? Like, because they evolved, because they have to see in the dark. They've evolved that way. They're like, how in some of those stories about vampires, they can't be exposed to the sun. It's that kind of thing. They're a human that has evolved over time to see in the dark. It's not because they're gaining all of these spiritual powers.
Auras and our chakras, no problem. They could probably look at you and see your entire energy signature of your aura and know exactly how spiritually advanced you are. Like we would look at a toddler and know, oh, that's a 3-year-old. oh, that's a 7-year-old. Like we kind of know basically how old that being is just by looking at them. I think ETs can do the same thing with us, but in terms of spiritual maturity rather than physical. So they've got these massive black eyes that are taking in a huge amount of the light spectrum, massive brains that are telepathic, and they can, shape shift and stuff. Like they are godlike compared to us. So you're like, yeah, there actually is an even bigger difference between those beings, and where I'm at. So it's pretty exciting, I think, when you consider the evolutionary trajectory we're moving towards. Like, oh, it's just going to keep getting better from here, right? But we got to move.
And yeah, we're technically all family, like with all of these star races. So all of these fallen races they're technically just other versions of humans, but it goes back so far that they've just gone so far down a path of de-evolution that they think totally differently from us. Like you have to really understand that. I did mention in one video, my recent Q&A video, how some of these star races are pretty much computers. Like they have computer parts to them. So if you have those computer parts, you're not going to be able to think normally. You're not going to be able to, you're going to kind of think like a computer. So
like, let's just back up. It's like, just imagine if you could genuinely talk to an extraterrestrial who is a 6th density being that's just unimaginably more intelligent than you. How do you think that conversation would go? And you have to come to the conclusion that it would be so alien and mind warping. It would be almost disorienting. You know what I mean? It'd be so out of my box. And it should.
What's interesting is that when I meet higher beings in the upper astral, in OBEs, and things like that, they are very human-like. So, and it always shocks me actually, how you'll see, for example, an angel or a Lyran or some type of being like that, and that quality that we have, that humans have. Or you can think of a little kid actually. So think about how a little kid has this really fun and curious and kind of upbeat, kind of playful quality to them. So that is God to me. That is what it means to be human. And when you meet angels, for example, they're not like standing like statues and saying things like like whatever these channelers say, like you must like repent for what you've done in like a very like monotone voice. That to me is more of a fallen star race trait where they're more connected to an automation, more of a computer type quality. And you'll notice that a lot of the channelers, they have a computer quality to their voice when they channel. Like think about this guy. I'm not going to say names because I don't want the video to be spread to those people, but like they all sound like they're channeling computers. Okay. And yeah, there are computers in other, like we're not the only dimension that has computers. There's computers in other dimensions. So yeah. Sorry, I have to go back.
I personally don't and can't take that seriously as a legitimate channel. But also, I think for me, when you look at what's being channeled, the law of one, like, let's just back up. It's like, just imagine if you could genuinely talk to an extraterrestrial who is a 6th density being that's just unimaginably more intelligent than you. How do you think that conversation would go? And you have to come to the conclusion that it would be so alien and mind warping. It would be almost
Yeah, why? Why does it have to be like that? I don't think so. I have never had an experience like meeting the angels, meeting like other galactic races. I met an avian. Yes, it's true. So, in all those experiences, they were so normal, almost to a shocking degree where I was like, "Oh, you have that same kind of fun quality that humans have. Like when you see a human doing something really carefree and really funny, and you're like, haha, like I love humans, like those moments where you're like proud to be a human. You're like, oh, that person's just so funny. That is what they're all like. Okay. Um, so it's interesting that he's saying that it would feel so weird and alien. Um, no, they should feel like you. They should feel like your family.
The law one speaks about that we could choose two paths, the negative and the positive, and most of us are choosing the positive. Fortunately, I wouldn't understand why anybody would choose the opposite, to be honest. But that exists as well. The universe
does.
has everything, so that is linked to also wisdom versus love. Could you explain?
Yeah. So the the positive polarity is predicated on love. So activating the heart chakra. And if you want to make it to the positive polarity, by the way, they say the graduation point is to get 51% or more, essentially heart chakra activated. They would say service to others oriented is their phrase. But what
That's so weird. So there's like a percentage, there's a number you have to reach. That's like brainwashing right there. Do you see what I mean? So they tell you all these ideas and hoping that you'll really take that seriously. Be like, oh, my heart chakra is only at 50%. It's supposed to be at 51%. Oh, I'm like a horrible person.
that really just means is heart activated. So it's like, are you able to live from your heart 51% of the time or more? If yes, if that checks out in your life review, you're going to the fourth density. So when we look at the negative polarity, a lot of people get this confused and they say, oh, look, the creator is both negative and positive, light and dark. But you have some really great Bible verses from ancient times that say, God is light in whom there is no darkness at all, and things like this. So what it means is, yes, the opposite of the creator's nature is evil and fear and stuff, but those things don't exist, meaning they're not actually real. There's no ontology to evil. And the Course teaches this as well, right? The Course says evil does not exist. Why is that? Well, look at evil like the rottenness in a tomato or an apple. You can't take rottenness out of an apple, right? You can't isolate rottenness from a tomato.
Yeah, I do agree with what he's saying. You can't really say that anything is evil technically because for example, like all of the star races, so even the fallen star race that he is, all of those star races are technically originally created by the angels. So all of the star races are technically one big family because they're all created. They all kind of come from the same source, but some of them de-evolved themselves. So as that race, for example, this race, as they progressed, they just went down a dark path. You know what I'm saying? And they evolved, I guess, de evolved. So they just see the world in a different way because of that. And because of their decision, you could say that they became evil.
It is a state of privation within the tomato. So there's no such thing as rottenness that sneaks around the universe and slithers into apples and makes them rotten. There is no entity called rottenness, right? It is the privation of being. It is the absence of being. It is the loss of being. And so that's what the negative polarity is. It's the
Yeah, it is the being blind to what you really are, like being cut off from what you really are. That's, I guess you could say, what evil is.
absence of truth, the absence of love. And so you can go on living like that for quite some time, all the way through the early sixth density, but it's not fundamentally real. It's not based metaphysically on the tenets of reality. And so it can only go on so long. And it must eventually concede, nope, this is the way reality actually is. All is one. There is no separation. And so love is the only truly intelligent way to exist in the universe.
But we do have to be careful because, yeah, he's saying that evil doesn't exist, but I find a lot of them, they'll use that as an excuse to be like, everyone, when we, as these like kind of scary looking alien, like ET races, so this race, Greys and all that stuff, this race, like when we come,
Yesterday, the Senate Government
Oops.
Reform Committee
when we come, like don't be afraid and listen to us and accept us, sort of thing. So yeah, you have to be wary of that.
But the cool thing is that doesn't mean the negative polarity is some kind of mistake. It's not. The negative polarity was created when the veil of forgetting was created. And the law of one goes into detail on this, that long ago in the universe, there was no negative polarity. And so all planets were positively polarized. And they said the problem with that is that third density was this enormously long density, because you have this condition where there's these very young souls that at the same time have full knowledge of the universe. And so he said third density beings were a lot like children in school who are not rewarded for doing their homework and are not punished for failing their tests. So there's no reward or consequence. So what do the kids do? They just play on the playground all day. They've got no motivation to study or learn anything, right? So when a third density being already knows, I'm one with God and one with everything, and it's all love, there's not a lot of impetus for learning and development. And so eons ago, a logos, aka star, one of the star systems of our universe, had an idea, and that logos said, what if I veiled the incoming souls in third density from their memory of what the universe...
As I'm listening to this, I'm picturing one of those old animated like claymation TV shows that are just like really weird and about those Bible stories. I'm picturing that star that he was saying, logos talking.
A star, one of the star systems of our universe, had an idea, and that logos said, what if I veiled the incoming souls in third density from their memory of what the universe is and who they are? What would happen? And they ran the experiment, and it was seen as a massive success, because what it did was it created the negative polarity. When a veil of forgetting was encapsulated around the planet that the third density souls were going into, you had this new condition of the belief in separation. And who am I? Why am I here? What's the meaning of this universe? Now it's all a mystery. And so now there's the possibility to not know what's true, right? The path of that which is not. Meaning now, when you're veiled, you can get it wrong. You can understand the universe incorrectly. And that would be according to separateness. And so that created the negative polarity, which was actually seen as a huge success, because now third density went from being millions of years long to about 1,000 years long, or at least on the individual level. And so the logos were like, hey, this was a huge success, because now there's this rub, this friction in third density, where there's equal positive and equal negative catalyst available. And so now the incoming souls have this organic opportunity to genuinely choose, which polarity do I prefer? And Ra says the creator doesn't bat an eye at their choice, and it doesn't try to persuade them either way. But nonetheless,
I'm confused over this. I agree that there is an element of experiment, like what's happening here. It's kind of like an observation that's going on. So yeah, it's almost like we wanted to test ourselves and we wanted to test our souls to see what we would do, because this is something we've never seen before. We've never seen ourselves in such a fallen world. It's kind of like crazy. Like it's like a one of a kind experience, I guess. Your soul family, like in the higher planes, they're kind of interested in this. Like it helps them understand God and understand themselves, to see what happens when these godlike beings come down here. But he's talking about how there's like a negative and positive polarity that was created, and how souls have those are our only choices. So if we want to incarnate, we either choose the positive polarity or the negative polarity. And do you see how that's it's setting us up to just reincarnate back? They just really, they love when people reincarnate back. They love it.
About something like 90% of the souls in the universe wind up choosing the positive polarity, and 10% or less choose negative. And so really they say the problem is actually the sinkhole of indifference between the two, meaning a lot of souls kind of waffle between the polarities for lifetime after lifetime. They don't really choose fully to be a being of love, but they don't want to fully be evil either. And so they're kind of just living this mundane, selfish existence for millennia and eventually choosing the positive. So when we look at our planet and people say, oh, there's so many evil, selfish people on our planet, are they
So choosing the positive is ascending to 5D.
all negatively polarized? It's like, no, it's not that simple. Most people on this planet will eventually choose the positive. I'm absolutely certain of that. But they're in that sinkhole where they still don't really know why they're here, what's the purpose of it all. And so they're persuaded by the negative polarity, and they're involved in it quite a bit. But that's going to create more and more suffering, which will probably lead them to eventually choose love instead. The beings that are choosing the negative polarity, that are genuinely graduating to the fourth density negative, are very few. But they just so happen to be all the people that are in positions of power on our planet, which is why yes. This is why it seems to be that the negative polarity has much more power on our planet than it actually does. Because a negative being's entire existence is predicated on the gaining of power. There is no other purpose to exist. And so if you think about what kind of positions would a person whose only reason for existing is to take power over others? You say, well, they'd probably go to government or politics for sure. They'd probably want to be military dictators or anything like this, right? Famous
AKA
celebrities that can influence the masses. And so, yes, these are all the positions we find the negative polarity thriving in on our planet, is Hollywood and big pharma and politics and government and military.
Oh my gosh, AKA. So they love being on the top of the pyramid and they control all of those industries that you just said. I'm telling you.
Because those are the positions where you can have the most power over people. And so most people aren't pharma executives or famous celebrities or politicians or governors or military dictators.
Well, maybe we should have a more even distribution of all star races within those roles.
These are percentage-wise, very, very tiny percentage of people are in these positions. But because of the nature of polarity, it's that the most negatively polarized people on our planet will always seek out the most powerful positions. And so, as beings of the light, we've got to get privy to this. We've got to figure out the metaphysics of what's going on and say, oh, the negative polarity only wants power and has no other motive for being here. So, what we need to do is we need to put stopgaps in these positions, meaning we need to send beings of light into government, into pharma, into the military, and plug up those positions so that the negative can't have this full ownership of them.
Well, then do that. Like, oh my gosh. Because I've already said this in previous videos, but this star race, they tend to be all the CEOs of all the companies, they're all the people in Congress, any person who has that like very high position. If for example there's like a good person who comes in and like tries to do something good, even celebrities, if a celebrity is trying to do something good, doesn't matter, because this star race will come in and just replace them with one of their own. Like, that's just how it works now. So he's suggesting, oh, why don't we put more light beings in those positions? It's just funny. It's just very, very ironic. Anyways.
And that's where we're at right now, is that the negative polarity basically has almost universal control over every position of power, because people of light don't want power. I don't want to be a dictator of people. I don't want to be a politician that makes laws for people. It's natural that a positive being wouldn't want that kind of position. But when we realize the opportunity they provide to be of service to the planet, like, hey, just imagine what good we could do if a
it's very curious. It's very interesting, because it's true that not all of these star race, not all of them are looking to control people and are fallen and all that. But I would say most are, and most are kind of in that direction. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I can't demonize any star race, but I'm just saying that there's just a trend where when I see someone on the world stage doing something bad, or I see a celebrity who gets replaced with this star race, and they all of a sudden are doing these like kind of, I don't know, they're like spreading these really bad messages to the world. It just makes me go, okay, there's like a pattern going on here. I also wanted to, I meant to say this, that this star race, they also will infiltrate Hollywood, and I mean more in infiltrating movies and TV shows. So in this blog post, I explain this like near the bottom. This is for whenever I do these TV or movie decodings where I show the spiritual symbolism, I usually do a bonus blog post that shows just some extra things about the show. And yeah. In Severance, I did notice that the show got overtaken by the reps. So it happens quite often, like very, very common. And usually, for example, if we can use we can use Severance as an example, where the ending is very much your classic rep ending, where they often show the main character becoming trapped. They don't want you to realize your power. They don't want that. So they're very strategic in putting it in the spiritual community, putting it in all the movies, the TV shows. There are some movies and TV shows, like I said, that do have positive messages, but it happens a lot where you'll have like a good thing, like you'll have a really good movie or TV show, and then it slowly goes downhill because they take it over. So, yeah.
Being of true light were to become the president of Pfizer, you know what I mean? Or the control of our military or the president, like, whoa, we're talking about a whole different planet almost overnight.
Well, sometimes they do, and then they just get replaced by this race. So it's just like it's like a battle that's happening.
Right. So it's like we're in this paradox, right? Where beings on the positive polarity have no interest in power. And so we're kind of leaving a vacuum of power open for the negative to just grab hold of. And so now the positive is gaining wisdom, saying, no, we do need to seek out positions of power, not to take power, but to stop the negative from weaponizing those positions of power and to actually create benevolent governance on our planet. And so I think we're just now seeing this awareness awakening on our planet. And we're
So really ask yourself why they're planting these seeds now. They're talking about a future benevolent government. Maybe they want to kind of get us ready to accept a more galactic government. And they want us to be okay with these types of star races, like telling us what to do, even though most of them I feel don't have the kind of high perspective that the unfallen star races have. So yeah, but for some reason they're in charge of our world right now. It's very much a Star Wars situation. So in Star Wars, they have these villages where everyone is like slaves, basically, and they're under control of the galactic government, I guess, under the dark force. I'm just saying that what we're in right now is kind of the same thing. A lot of the stuff that happens is decided on by the galactic government. So everything, it starts with them. And it really seems like they want us to become a more galactic society, maybe because they know that there's gonna be some stuff showing up in the sky that's going to show us where we really are, show us our power as souls, and they want to get in there before that happens. Just like how all the people that live in this village in Star Wars, they're under like control, like they're not allowed to leave the village. You know what I'm saying?
awareness awakening on our planet. And we're seeing people like RFK and others who, I'm not saying RFK is being of pure light or something, but like clearly he's choosing the positive polarity. I think there's no question.
No. RFK and all of okay, sorry. All of those people in politics, those people in Congress, they're just following the orders from the galactic government. Okay. So anything you see happening, it's all just to serve their agenda, which is to like keep humans under control. The guy he was talking about, he is like going in front of Congress and he's going on these podcasts and talking about like making the food supply better. He's missing like a huge part of why our food is even like that in the first place. Taking artificial flavors and artificial colors out of our food, is that actually going to do anything? It's just something to keep us on a certain track that will eventually lead to us accepting the galactic government as our leaders.
About that and wanting to do good. So it's like, we kind of just need to take what we can get at this point. Like, RFK is not a perfect person. Trump isn't a perfect person by any measure at all. But we need to say, let's not look for a perfect person, because that's an illusion, right? There's not going to be a perfect person we can elect for president. Who's the best available person? Who's the closest to light we can possibly get in that position? And that's going to be a massive improvement.
Well, the star race. So it doesn't really matter what happens in politics, because they have their own versions of all of the presidents, all of the politicians. They will film. Okay, I feel like I can't even say this actually. It's a bit too out there, but just know that like this group, like they will do whatever they can. They will do whatever they can to make us like go in their direction. You know what I'm saying? Even if it means exposing themselves as, I don't know, like you've seen these videos talking about them, that like a lot of those videos is actually coming from them. So it's funny how they do that. But they're exposing themselves now because they know that they have to show themselves. Otherwise, we're going to become too powerful. We're going to believe too much in ourselves. So they have to like make themselves known as our new leaders, and they have to get us to accept them and trust them. And I don't know, I'll just say that there's a lot of subliminal stuff that they show us. I find especially in commercials. I'll show you one actually. So to me, this commercial has rep subliminal programming.
I know I should have announced myself. Eugene Levy. I'm your sleep daddy, and I'm here to help you get serious about sleep. Never sacrifice.
So, Lizard, right? Lizard. It's I know that you're probably watching this and being like, wow, Jen is a conspiracy theorist. She's losing her mind. But it's these little things. I am just telling you. It's all very it's on purpose that they do this. They do it in like TV shows and movies too.
So it's like you have to either pretend to be evil and then switch on them at the, once you get in, or we have to figure out how to slowly dismantle these filters that they've created in politics, government, pharma, military. They kind of almost create themselves in a way, because birds of a feather flock together, right? So beings that all have the same goal in mind tend to stick together and like hanging out together, and tend to not like outsiders coming into their group. So like, again, look at RFK with Big Pharma. For a long time, pharma has put all their own executives in positions of government, right? In the CDC, in the FDA, HHS. Everyone that's in these positions used to work for Big Pharma, like they're all trading seats with each other. And then RFK comes in, and what happens? He instantly gets attacked by all the pharma executives and news outlets, and everyone's coming after RFK.
But they're all working for the galactic government. So it doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter who does and doesn't work for Big Pharma.
To try to make him look like a pseudo-intellectual, a dangerous this or that. It's like, hey, why is everyone in the medical industry suddenly so concerned about RFK? Are they really just so darn virtuous that they just want to protect people? That's what it's all about. And this guy, RFK, he's bad news. He's dangerous. Is that really what's going on? Are we so naive as to believe that? Or is this a smear campaign, the likes of which they use on anybody who threatens their power, and RFK is just the latest threat to their power? They're going to enjoy what they have while it lasts. They're going to go down with the ship, so to speak, and they're going to squeeze every bit of juice out of this thing that they can before they move on to their next planet. So we're by no means done dealing with the negative polarity on our planet. They're going to keep siphoning energy off of us as long as they can hang on, just like a virus does, right? But I do think that our destiny is inevitable, that we will eventually get through this period, clean up our planet, and become an enlightened civilization. How long? Ra says that their estimates are between 100 to 700 years. And that seems pretty reasonable to me.
We won't be here then.
So actually, from my psychic readings, you can take this however you want, but I see the world opening up in around 7 years. So, like a real awakening, which is why there's this huge rush for disclosure from these ET groups. That's why all these channelers are saying, oh, they're coming in 2027. They have to because they're running out of time. And sorry, when I say 7 years, that's like an estimate. So don't like take that as any kind of sure thing. That's just what I get psychically.
Investigation. I mean, it takes. You're diving so deep into these materials, and there's so much more to speak about, but we'll have to do that another time. I have a few questions I ask all my guests, and the first one is, what is self-love to you, Aaron?
Great question. I'll give the same answer I gave earlier, that I think true self-love, this is just what has felt true for me in my own spiritual journey. True self-love really is the ability to see yourself in everybody. To be able to love somebody else as yourself, as Jesus said to do, is real self-love, because it's the recognition that they're not really another self. You know, Jesus said, hey, when you don't love the least of these, you don't love me. And that hurts me because Jesus saw himself in everybody. So I think
sorry to because what he's saying is actually very nice, but you just have to be aware that these channelers, they don't want you to be questioning things when they eventually come. They want you to be in this thinking of, oh, everyone is connected in one big group, one big family. Like, yes, that is true to an extent, that we're all one, like that law of one thing. Like, that's true to an extent, but when you use it for manipulative reasons and like as a way to manipulate people, that to me is not a good way to be using that. So that's why when I see things about law of one and, oh, like, don't worry about it, we're all one, so just really like sit down and accept everyone and don't ask questions. That is disempowering you. That is taking you out of your intuition, and just, to me, it's like being complacent to whatever happens to you, and that to me is not what life is about at all. So what are you saying is nice, and it is technically true that all of the star races, they all come from the same creator, I guess. But yeah.
I teach self-love all the time, and I've noticed this problem that if we always make it about how do I love myself, my shadows, my pain, that's absolutely part of it. But self-love doesn't end there. It has to be extended out, and you have to afford everybody else the same level of love and compassion and care that you afford yourself. And so it's like, do I want to forgive other people of their mistakes with the same speed that I want to be forgiven when I make a mistake?
Honestly, like who you like, don't like who you don't like. Who cares? It's your life. If someone isn't treating you well, then you're actually like abandoning yourself by forgiving them and being around them, you know? I think it really depends. It really depends. I don't think we should just be loving and accepting everyone, like people who are causing us pain. Like, no, we should be fighting back. That, like, these channelers and these star races, they want us to just sit and accept everything that happens to us.
Like, that's the barometer that you've really found true self-love, I think.
Makes sense.
Okay, so that'll be it for this. I know it was kind of extensive, let me know what you think in the comments. And if you know of any other videos like this that would be interesting to review, let me know. And yeah, that's it. So I will talk to you soon.